This is Dubs OT.
Can't wait.
With John Dickinson.
Hey, JD, what you up to, sugar? Long time no talk to.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live at knbr.com and on the KNBR app.
Draymond, the decision maker. Melton driving. Melton hammering with the right hand. Oh, man. In the half court, Melton matches one.
And the rim, the whole goal is still shaking. He's talking crazy to Matkovic after that one.
He with the step around and laying it up and in.
The Warriors are going to the basket now. They are relentless.
Couple of the bright spots and what winds up being a disappointing night for the Golden State Warriors as they lose to the Pelicans in New Orleans, first of the two-game roadie. 113-109 is the final. We welcome you in. It's Dubs OT with JD here on this Tuesday night on the Sports Leader. 808 KNBR, the number 415-808-5627 to jump in and join the conversation via the phone lines, via the Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line 415-808-5627. Back to reality with the Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler-less universe. For the Warriors, you get some of the ups on Sunday afternoon, the big upset win over the Nuggets. And we talked about it a little bit on Sunday on the YouTube-only show from Harmonic Brewing in Thrive City. Could you really count on the Warriors? And I know the Pelicans are not maybe actively tanking like some other teams because they don't own their first-round pick here in the June 2026 draft. But they are a team that has been consistently among the worst in the NBA throughout the course of this season, but they got DeJounte Murray back tonight. And one of the things that stood out to me about this game is really when you just look, player for player on the Pelicans roster among the guys who played tonight. They didn't even have Trey Murphy in this one, who's been out with a shoulder injury, and he had a hamstring injury earlier in the year, but he hasn't been playing here since the All-Star break with a shoulder injury. But one of the things that just stands out, and we'll get into, why the Warriors lose this game and the bad first quarter and all the turnovers and just some ugly performances, basically, by the guys that the Warriors are to be dependent on at this point in time in the Steph Jimmy-less universe. But one thing that really did stand out to me from the jump is, man, you just look at the guys the Warriors are trotting out, and you look at the guys that the Pelicans are trotting out. And I know the Pelicans are 16-42 and now 17-42, but the Pelicans have more talent. I mean, they had a Zion Williamson, and the Warriors have nobody on a night like tonight like Zion Williamson. And they have a Sadiq Bey, who I think has probably accomplished more in his NBA career than anybody that the Warriors were throwing out there, with the exception of maybe DeAnthony Melton and Draymond Green, as far as their NBA careers go. And Al Horford didn't play front end of the back-to-back. Melton's not going to play back into the back-to-back. They were without Kristaps Porzingis in this game. But not to make excuses, it was an ugly, ugly performance offensively. The Warriors shoot 41%. They only hit 11 threes, so a little bit back down to earth in terms of the three-point shooting, which was there against the Nuggets on Sunday afternoon and not there tonight in a big-time way, only hitting under 25% from three-point range. All the turnovers, 21 turnovers for the Warriors in this one. You aren't going to win many games, even if you have Steph and Jimmy. If you turn it over 21 times, the Warriors do that in this one. And just not enough shot making. They scored in the paint, but also gave up a ton in the paint. 64 points in the paint for the Pelicans in this game. And the second chance points also, even though the Warriors had an advantage of 24-20, both teams in the 20s in terms of the offensive rebounds. But the Pelicans, I thought, with a few more key offensive rebounds in the second half that help allow them in a game that truly was back and forth in the second half, with the Warriors trying to come back and grab a lead after getting down 14 early, and just an ugly first quarter in this one But the Warriors end up winning the fourth quarter 37-36, a much more open and offensive-minded fourth quarter, much more open offensive-minded second half. The Warriors end up with, a 39-point first quarter against the Nuggets going back to Sunday afternoon at Chase Center. They score 39 in the first half of this game, but do score 70 in the second half, but it was 70-67. So it was kind of defense optional with all of the second chance points, even with the poor shooting percentages and a lot of stoppages and not a lot of total free throws, but it felt like a lot of fouls, back and forth in this one. But all told, too many turnovers. Horrific start for the Warriors offensively with only 19 in the first quarter. And you heard Bob Fitzgerald say it on the local telecast here that the Warriors did basically, and I would agree with him in this instance, lost the game in the first quarter, although they had many chances to win this game against a Pelicans team that gets just their 17th win. So a lot of the good vibes and feelings and taste of Sunday wiped away. And look, now the Warriors are going to head from New Orleans to Memphis and take on a team that is more in the actively tanking category. But the Warriors are going to have to do it with DeAnthony Melton taking a powder in the second of a back-to-back. They will get Al Horford back. Kristaps Porzingis is going to be out. We'll get you an update on Porzingis as well, as Steve Kerr did address. And I do think it was some good news on Porzingis because it was the first time that Steve addressed what exactly was ailing, or more to the point, what wasn't ailing Kristaps Porzingis. Steve saying pregame that it wasn't something, anything related to the POTS or the prior issues that Porzingis has had. So I think that does bode well for a return to action coming up on Saturday when the Warriors return home and go at it with the Los Angeles Lakers. So 808 KMBR, 415-808-5627. The best YouTube chat in sports. We appreciate everybody filing in. More thoughts on this one, but those are some general ones here to kind of get us rolling on Dubs OT here on this Tuesday night. Let's get out to the phone lines, and Drew Down and Tracy's going to get it tipped off here. He got us rolling on the stream-only calls on Sunday afternoon. He's going to get us rolling here on the actual phone lines back on the radio here on this Tuesday on Dubs OT. What's going on tonight, Drew Down?
What's up, JD? I was just telling Kyle Haar that I thought I lost about 5 pounds while I was puking, watching that Warriors game tonight. So I kind of echo your statement about that Denver win. Just kind of feels hollow now. Like, that was such a great win. And then for them to follow up, today with that kind of performance, we really we need these games against these, these bad teams. So, and then the 3-point shooting, man, I got 6 different Warriors took at least 3-pointers and made one. They were a 4 for 25, and then Melton and Moody were 7 for 20 combined. It was just a very, very horrible shooting performance against a team who doesn't necessarily guard the paint very well. So it was just, it was a brick fest. And then the last thing was, I've been a big Quentin Post guy. Last year I thought he added a lot of value with his ability to stretch the floor, but he really hasn't been hitting that 3 this year with consistency. And then, as far as him defensively, sometimes he's just a step slow, especially on offensive rebounds, and he doesn't have that athletic ability, and he gets bullied sometimes for rebounds. So that's kind of a tough look with no Horford and no Porzingis. I thought that was, a spot where we kind of could have had an advantage. So tough game, and it doesn't get any easier as they got it back-to-back. So we'll see if we can, get back on track tomorrow against Memphis, and we'll take it from there. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, appreciate it. Just not enough shot making tonight to offset the turnovers. And they did score in the paint, but again, the Pelicans, you just look at some of the talent, and that's the thing that strikes me again on a night like tonight, is looking at the guys that, Herb Jones didn't even have a particularly good game. He had a bad game offensively, but Herb Jones able to make his impact felt defensively. DeJounte Murray, they had, I think, maybe 5 more accomplished players if you add Jordan Poole to the mix, who didn't play particularly well and hasn't really in his time with the Pelicans. But it just, from a raw talent perspective, it just goes to show how under-talented this Warriors team is. And for them to win a game against Denver like they did on Sunday and then come back and lose a game against the Pelicans in the manner that they did, I mean, it starts for me going back to the first quarter of this game and the fact that I don't think the Warriors' hustle was there at the beginning of the game. They get down 31-19. And look, this is just the reality. If the Warriors are going to beat anybody with the team that they currently have, with no Steph and with no Jimmy and others kind of peppering in and out based on the back-to-back restrictions and all of that kind of stuff, the Warriors have to be the play hard team, the aggressor, the go-get, the hustle team. They got to do that against everybody, not just against the really good teams that may be, thinking that they can just walk up against the Warriors at Chase Center or wherever and just walk into the building and win just by showing up. And I think that was part of what was in play with Denver going back to Sunday. But it doesn't matter. You could be playing the best team in the NBA. You could be playing the worst team in the NBA. And the Warriors are playing a couple of the worst, a couple of teams that are, in the lottery, although, again, the Pelicans are going to send their pick off to the Atlanta Hawks. But you look at just, for the Warriors to be so under-talented by comparison to really all of their opponents, they have to be the team that plays harder. And I don't think they were the team that played harder in the first quarter. And, yeah, you can say, okay, the Pelicans come out, shoot 50% to the Warriors 32%. Neither team was hitting anything from three-point range. But that was really where the forcefulness of the Pelicans owning the paint was at its most profound. And it was the reason in which that they were able to get out to that 31-19 lead. And that was the game, in addition to, obviously, the turnovers throughout the course of the whole thing. And the Warriors did have 7 of their 21 turnovers in the first quarter of this one. But, they were dominating the paint, and the tone was basically set for the night that it was going to be, with the Warriors having 17 missed shots in the first quarter and only 19 points to go with the 7 turnovers in addition to that. So the Warriors down 31-19 going to the second quarter. Melton was really the only guy that was hitting shots for the Warriors, at least early on in the game. He ended up 8 for 21 and 3 of 10 from 3. Did get to the free throw line a bunch of times, 11 of the 23 free throws that the Warriors ultimately shot in this game were Melton, and he ended up 9 of 11, and he was pushing a potential career high in terms of scoring because of the free throws. I think 33 was his career high. He ended up with 28 in this ball game. But DeAnthony Melton was really the only guy early that was able to hit shots, but it was just too many long dry spells. Draymond Green, another night here for Draymond Green offensively that is just especially early was a yikes. I mean, he came around and ended up 5 of 11 and wound up really being the only player on the court for the Warriors that had a chance to semi-slow down, if not stop, Zion Williamson through stretches. I mean, Zion really was looking to attack in the moments that Draymond was not on the court, but there was a lot of yikes from Draymond offensively in that second quarter. They don't get anything close to what they got in the fourth quarter. They got more of what we saw in the first 3 quarters from Brandon Podziemski, who again ends up with 16 points, 15 boards, 3 assists. Like he's trying, but when it takes 18 shots to get the 16 points and it's just not efficient, and he's 1 of 6 from 3-point range, that's just not going to cut it. And the Warriors have not gotten much from Pat Spencer, the more that he's been forced into action here, even though I think historically they wind up with him being the better option of the two to be able to be in the starting lineup over Podziemski in these games where they're going to have to play without Stephen Curry. So Guy Santos continues to be an underrated find with 15 and 12, but just not enough. Moses Moody's doing his thing. He's really been somebody that has leveled up to a certain extent during the time that Steph and Jimmy have been out, and he continued to do that. He ends up with 24 points, and obviously we're keeping an eye on Moody toward the end of the season here, along with Podziemski. Like, what level can these guys get to if they're going to have more opportunities to kind of lead the charge here for this team between now and the end of the regular season. But again, ugly basketball, ugly basketball for the Warriors in this one tonight against the Pelicans. And look, this thing can turn quick. It is fragile as all heck when you look at tonight for Golden State. And if you can't get tomorrow, and then the schedule starts to get more difficult again. And look, Steph's return is at least, I think, a week and a half to 2 weeks away at this particular point in time. So 808 KMBR 415-808-5627 Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line is open. We'll get to some texts coming up. Still time to jump in on the phone lines as well. But let's get to the YouTube chat, the best YouTube chat in sports, as we roll on here on this Tuesday with Dubs OT and JD here on the Sports Leader. Pelicans 113, Warriors 109 as Golden State loses here, and they fall with the loss to 30-28 is the Warriors record here after this ball game tonight. 17-42 now for the New Orleans Pelicans. Let me double check that. I haven't been as locked in. Yeah, 30-28 the Warriors. So they will remain in 8th in the Western Conference. Currently 3 games back of Phoenix. Phoenix is 7th. Portland's playing right now against Minnesota. Portland's in 9th, a couple of games back of the Warriors, and the Clippers a couple of more games back of Portland and the Warriors in the Western Conference. The Clippers are the last team in as it relates to the play-in tournament. Clem Ackers, I'm not feeling comfortable with this team in the play-in if we're playing like this against the Pelicans. Well, it's going to be a different world, Clem. I will say it's going to be a different world. The Warriors have no shot of winning in the play-in if they don't have Steph Curry or Kristaps Porzingis playing. I mean, that's just reality. They'll be going home and having their 13th or 14th pick in the lottery and a 1% chance of moving up, or 5% chance of moving maybe into the top 4, 1% chance or less of getting the top overall pick in the draft. So again, we got to see what it looks like with Steph. But I mean, I've said it, and not afternoons or games like the game against Denver kind of make you wonder, like, maybe I'm not giving this team enough credit. Maybe I'm not giving this team enough credit for the talent that they have. Games like the Denver game, make me kind of wonder that, because at times I've said, and look, tonight's the kind of night that I will say it. The team that the Warriors are putting out there, I firmly believe, no disrespect to anybody, but I firmly believe the team that the Warriors are putting out there right now, without Steph and without Jimmy, and tonight they don't have Al Horford, who's basically been their second best player along with D'Anthony Melton in this time, maybe their best player along with D'Anthony Melton during this stretch here of the last 3.5 weeks where Steph's been out, in addition to Jimmy being done for the year. I think it's the worst roster in the NBA. Like, I really do. I think this is the worst. Like, I think this team would have over, if they had to play 82 games, I think they would be the worst team in the NBA. I think they're the least talented group in the NBA. Obviously, again, we're going to extremes here by taking Steph away and by taking Jimmy Butler away. And so, games like the game at home against Denver, JD, am I being a little too hard on them? Well, games like tonight, and again, just doing the eye test. And we got Kyle Harr in the Daly City Studios, who I failed to introduce here at the beginning of the show. But Kyle, you just do the eye test tonight, and you're like, DeJounte Murray hasn't played in over a year, and you're looking at, DeJounte Murray and Herb Jones and Jordan Poole's no great shakes, and Sadiq Bey and Zion Williamson, and you're like, Jesus, the Pelicans, who have 17 wins now and 42 losses, the Pelicans have like 5 of the best 6 players on the court, in terms of guys who are playing in this game. And so, I mean, it's startling. And this is the freaking Pelicans, for crying out loud. So I don't know. Am I too harsh in your mind on the Warriors?
No,
as far as not being talented, or because it hit me early, and look, it was ugly early, but my goodness. I mean, the Pelicans were almost not even close, the more talented team on the court tonight.
No, yeah. When it was going back and forth, I was like, why is this game like even close, especially with the way the Warriors were playing? And on paper, the Pelicans have the much more talented roster compared to the current Warriors right now. And oh my God, JD, in that first half, that back and forth, and it was both teams bricking shots. And then, oh my God, and the ball just kind of going everywhere it shouldn't have. It was a tough watch. It was a tough watch.
The game was a tough watch. And again, look, you don't want to belabor the point because that as this thing goes on, there are going to be some ugly nights if the Warriors are not going to have Steph and Jimmy. And, tonight among the ugly of the ugly, when you look at the, the guys that are out there and who they're playing against, I think as well is a big part of the equation there. All right, let's continue here. We do have a few people that want to chat on the phone lines. Kyle, do we need to take a timeout or can we push through a little bit here into the 8 o'clock hour? 808 KMBR, you're listening here to KMBR 104.5 FM and 680 AM San Francisco, the sports leader, Cumulus Media Station. Let's do 2 more clicks, then we'll get to the calls here at the top of the 8 o'clock hour. Again, Dubs OT with JD. Warriors lose to the Pelicans, and it wasn't pretty tonight, 113-109, although the Warriors did have chances down the stretch and in the fourth quarter to win the game. Let's get 2 more here in the chat, and we are. You don't have to bring this up now in terms of the chat, but we are going to talk about Jonathan Kaminga's debut with the Hawks tonight because Kaminga looked pretty good, and I was watching a little bit. I'm a league pass head, so I was watching a little bit of it. And so we will get into that between now and the end of the program. I know people are talking about that in the chat. Kaminga looked good. And he really did it with a shot chart, I will say, that looked an awful lot like his best games with the Warriors tonight. But no, Kaminga was really good in his first game with Atlanta since the trade. And look, this trade's going to be something that will be continued to be evaluated. And look, I've said it was the right move because Kaminga was never going to do anything that he may go on to do with the Warriors. Like it was cooked, based on all of the things we've talked about for the last 3 or 4 years. But I've never said that means he's not going to go be a productive and successful player elsewhere. He does have the talent and the ability to do that. So we'll get to Kaminga coming up a little bit later on in the program. Robert Mason, JD, a couple weeks ago, I sent a text to you, said without Steph, this Warrior team would be worse than the Fred Carter 1972 9-73 76ers. Do you have a change in your heart now, JD? No, I think they're better than that, but I do think they're better than that 9-73, but I mean, not much. I mean, I think, and again, I don't want to be mean, but I think this is about a 15 to 17 win team tops if they had to play the entire year with the group that they have. And I think in some ways it's been borderline miraculous that you look up, and I think they're now 5-9 in the 14 games here that they've had to play without since I can't remember if that's since Jimmy went down or with Jimmy and Steph out. It's basically all of February here. But the Warriors have been able to win some games. I think that's the totality since Jimmy Butler went down, now 5-9 overall. But the Warriors have been able to win, 3 games, I think?
Yeah, 3 games.
Since Steph went down in February, 3 of the 5, basically, since Steph went down. But again, the Kings are on pace to win, and they finally stopped their losing streak last night. Oh, by the way, who'd the Kings beat last night? Kyle, do you know? Kyle's not. They beat Memphis last night in Memphis. So Memphis has got Sacramento in last night, then an off day tonight, and they play the Warriors tomorrow. So it's not a back-to-back for the Grizzlies. But, the Kings snapped their 16-game losing streak against Memphis last night in Memphis. So, but I think the Warriors would be right there with that Sacramento team. That's going to win, somewhere in the teens, to be sure. All right, one more, and we'll get to the calls. Robert Brown, they've played up and down, even when healthy. So this is just kind of them all the time. And look, if the thing that I think people forget is bad teams or under-talented teams have games where they just, some nights it's a really good version, some nights it's a bad version, right? And so tonight was the lower end version of this group that the Warriors currently have, and the lower end version of this group that the Warriors currently have is pretty gross. But we've also seen that on nights where maybe the opponent takes them for granted and they play extremely hard and they share the ball and they don't turn it over, and oh, by the way, they hit some threes. I mean, that's been the other thing they've done when they've really been successful, is they've had some kind of fluky games that would get fits ticked off if the opponent was having against the Warriors, that the Warriors have had against some opponents. Can you imagine how ticked off Fitz would be if the Warriors were having against them the game that they put on Denver in terms of three-point shooting, when they've basically been the worst three-point shooting team in the league without Steph?
I can hear it. I can hear it right now.
And that's basically what the Warriors did to Denver on Sunday. I mean, let's just call it like it is. Like they 15 threes in the first half. I mean, Fitz's head would explode if it was going the other way. As far as a team doing that to the Warriors that's as inept offensively as this Warriors team can be. But no disagreement there necessarily, Robert. All right, let's get to the phones. A couple of people that want to squawk with us. More in the YouTube chat coming up here, as we'll keep this thing going at least until 9 o'clock. Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader. And we get to Adam in San Jose next here on the Sports Leader. Hey, Adam.
What's up, JD? I don't have anything to say about the game. I think it's pretty obvious that we're just a really bad team. As much as Draymond has fallen off, I really feel bad for the guy. I don't know how we can expect him to be motivated to play when he's used to playing alongside guys like Steph, Kevin Durant, Clay, Iguodala, and he looks up tonight and his teammates are D. Santos, Pat Spencer, Brandon Pajemski, Quinton Post. I mean, how do we even expect him to be motivated to play alongside those guys? At this point, we just need to wrap the season up and start thinking about next year. And then, my God, that Kaminga trade is already looking bad. If he continues to play like this, the entire Warriors front office and coaching staff will be unemployed by the end of the season. Mark my word. That's it.
Yeah, I don't know about the last part there. And again, it is just one game, but Kaminga looked really good. I do think it's interesting, and I'm going to get into it more because I watched. It was kind of my secondary watch as I was going through and watching the Warrior game. He really did it in a lot of the ways that his best games with the Warriors looked. It wasn't as if Atlanta was like letting him do the things that he wants to do. He did take some threes, but they were corner threes and not that left or right wing three, the above the break three that he loves to take. That he didn't take any of those. He took one mid-range tonight, but the one thing that was for sure, he was playing hard. He was rebounding. He was running hard. And he was basically, if it wasn't a layup or a dunk or getting fouled, he was moving the ball or a corner three. And again, he has a reason to be motivated because he's basically playing for his career right now. After the way things played out, it wasn't exactly the best look for him or the Warriors in how things turned out. So one game is not gonna determine ultimately the way things turn out and the winners and losers from that. But it is definitely, Adam, going to be something that will continue to be monitored. And if he goes on to be a really freaking good player, then that's going to be something that absolutely the Warriors at some point down the line are going to have to be accountable for. There's no question about it. My opinion of why none of that matters at all. If he goes on to be an all-star player, it's not going to be a great look for the Warriors. But again, we do need to see how it plays out. As far as Draymond, I thought Draymond was actually pretty motivated tonight. I just thought Draymond really stunk offensively, especially in the first half. But I thought going up against Zion, especially after getting the game off against Denver, he was pretty motivated and pretty energetic. And I think, picking your spots with Draymond in terms of how often you use him in certain games, allowing him for the challenge defensively to go up against some premier, more high profile type opponents. is something that could be the best way to get a little bit more out of Draymond. I wouldn't say I necessarily feel bad for him, but I mean, you definitely can understand as he declines. He is the kind of player that whatever level of decline Draymond's game is on, it's going to look worse playing with less talent. And I think that's something that, the longer that Steph's out and Jimmy and it just isn't going to look good. And it already hasn't here of late for Draymond. So I think that is something that is, the Warriors are going to have to be maybe a little bit more selective in the games that they have him play to try to keep him fresh and get the most out of him and not maybe have those games where he's kind of sleepwalking a little bit or playing a little bit as if he's kind of shook, at the news that broke before the Boston game that Steph was going to be out probably at least another, 2 weeks from going back to 5 days ago. So no question, it is a different time for Draymond. And he is at his best when the games mean the most. And frankly, the games don't mean a whole heck of a lot right now. The Warriors need to get some wins, enough to just stay afloat. If they can, be around 500 here, or, a couple under, just stick around 500 in the time Steph's out, I think they'll probably consider that a win. And it's not as if they're going to fall out of the play-in unless they, go on a 10, 12 game losing streak, something like that. But if they're not careful, and they have to go long enough without Steph, those 10, 12 game losing streaks could happen. And losing a game like tonight and losing tonight and tomorrow, if it winds up going down like that, would be the way that you could wind up in a real bad streak here before you know it, if you can't find a way to get enough wins here to just kind of stabilize yourself. Danny at Vancouver is next here on Dubs OT tonight. Warriors lose 113-109. What's going on, Danny? Have you recovered from Sunday morning, my friend? Have you recovered from the gold medal game?
Yes.
Are you all right?
I'm all right. It was a little hard. It was a little hard to take. It was very early in the morning, but congrats to the USA men's team and the women's team. And the women's team were amazing, and I congratulate both teams. I think the women's team have medaled in every Olympics they've been in. So it seems that they kind of get forgotten, but that well earned both the men and the women. So I'll say that first. But it was hard up here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we were in a little bit of mourning. Everyone, all my buddies we spoke to. It was hard. So, anyways, thanks for taking my call, JD. I thought I'd differ with you a little bit. I thought the effort was there tonight. Very sloppy, ugly shooting. I thought that was a pretty solid game for Dre. Unfortunately, he's he can either, if he can hit the three, he's either hitting the three or not, and then he can drive to the hoop. But he doesn't have anything in between, so it's just really frustrating. But I think he was a +8. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought he was good.
+8.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, he was a +8, and I thought there were some rough offensive moments in the first half, in particular in the second quarter. But other than that, he was the only one that had any chance at slowing Zion down tonight.
Agreed. Melton was great. I mean, he's looked so good. I'm so happy for him. He's just a terrific ad. But we were just terribly undermanned. I was thinking, I don't know why Seth Curry's been out so long, but we could have really used Seth Curry tonight to come out and give us some scoring. So, and then Pods I thought was solid. Just didn't shoot very well, but I mean he's rebounding and hustling. It's just kind of ugly. Just a couple things. Anyways, you can maybe fill me in on Seth Curry when I'm done. But just going to say, Kaminga, I would caution people to slow their roll a little bit on this one. I wish him all the best of success in Atlanta, but they were playing Washington. It was his first game. It's remember the beginning of the year with the Warriors. He looked like a new man for 5 games, and then I think Anthony Slater's very good long article kind of confirmed a lot of what I believed. I thought it was a lot more on him than the Warriors or Kerr. I think Kerr's a great coach. He's a player's coach. And he kind of, I think you picked up on it too, JD. I think he kind of quit. And some of the stuff I heard was pretty bad. So, I don't know how he's going to do with Atlanta, but I'm going to wait for a while. I kind of wish I taped the game, but it's wait and see. I'm going to wait a few games and see how it goes. Thanks, JD. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
You got it, Danny. Nope, thanks for the call. Look, Kaminga did not look all that different tonight, as I said, with Atlanta in his first game than some of the better games we saw him have with the Warriors. It wasn't as if, again, I will get into the shot chart and the overall line, and the numbers were really good for Jonathan Kaminga. He went for 27 points. He was active on the boards tonight. He kept the ball moving, but he took one mid-range shot when Atlanta was up by 30 plus against Washington. And I don't even really care about the opponent, but it was all at the rim, or he got fouled, or it was a corner three, and he got a couple of dunks in transition. Like it was just, it was that version of Kaminga for Atlanta tonight that the Warriors and Steve Kerr wanted him to be. It was not the guy putting it on the deck, like he's Kawhi Leonard or prime Kobe Bryant, taking mid-range fadeaways. Like it wasn't that. And again, he was more engaged because he's got a fresh start, and that's natural and appropriate. So again, if he continues to play at that level, regardless, it's going to be a bad look for the Warriors. There's no question about that. But again, I don't think tonight, although it is going to make headlines, and it already kind of is, you just look at the numbers and it's like, yep, he came off the bench. He played 24 minutes. He had 27 points. They blew out the Wizards, and he did. Again, picture the best Jonathan Kuminga games when it's basically all dunks off actions or transition. He did hit some threes tonight from the corner, but he took good shots, or he kept it moving, and he played hard. He was high motor. Kaminga tonight. He was much more motivated. And again, he has to be, because he's playing for his NBA career here with Atlanta. He winds up not having it work out with the Hawks. He's going to wind up on a third team here in a pretty short period of time. And at that point, you start to be maybe fringe kind of out of the league. So he's got to put up some numbers and some production and be coachable. I just found it interesting that the way he did it with a completely new coaching staff was a lot like the Warriors coaching staff wanted him to do it, but became, not to his liking. It's obviously going to be cool when it's the first game with a new team and you're trying to shove it to the prior team, but it did not. Again, if you go back and watch the highlights of it, or actually, if you're a League Pass head, you go back and you watch the game, or you speed watch it or whatever. It was not all that different from a lot of the really good games that we've seen Kaminga have, and there have been quite a few of them in the time that he was with Golden State. Joke's on you. Truth be told, Atlanta has a better roster, and game plan isn't to get it to Steph, makes it better for him to shine. It's like Mac Jones on the 49ers versus the Jets. Environment matters. Yeah, I mean, again, time will tell on that, but I do think it's interesting because I hate to keep repeating myself over and over again, but it truly was, he got his exactly like he got his with Atlanta, and or with the Warriors when he played it wasn't as if the Hawks were giving Kaminga the rock and saying, "Hey, go to work." Like, go to work out of the perimeter and get to the bucket. By dribbling and hitting pull-up jumpers and that kind of thing. But again, he was great tonight for Atlanta. He led them in scoring tonight. We'll just go ahead and give you the full line here for Jonathan Kaminga against the Wizards. Hawks won 119-98. Kaminga ends up 27 points. He was a plus 16. He was 9 for 12 shooting in the game. He did knock down 3 3-pointers. He had 7 rebounds, so it was a high motor Kaminga tonight, which isn't always there. He had 4 assists and was a plus 16 in only 24 minutes. So it's not like he played a ton of minutes, but he didn't need to because it was basically a blowout. And then you look at the shot chart for Jonathan Kaminga as well. 6 of 7 in the paint, and 5 of the 6 were at the rim, dunk or layup. 5 of the 6, dunk or layup. a few of those off the pass as well. He missed one shot in the paint. He took the one mid-range. I mean, his shot chart is clean. There was nothing in the mid-range. It was all in the paint or corner threes, which, again, I know for a fact the Warriors were open to him taking corner threes. They just didn't want him taking above the break threes, and he loved taking above the break threes. He took none of those in this game tonight, which I think is interesting. So, yeah, if you have a chance, look at the shot chart for Kaminga, but all in all, a very strong debut for him. JMU 22, Atlanta has a lot of young guys that just want to play. We have young guys that have to defer to Curry and Dre. Team's done, y'all. Okay. Again, I was casually watching, but it was not as if Atlanta made him the focal point tonight in a way that the Warriors didn't. He just happened to get his in the framework of what Atlanta was trying to do, which is something that over time Kuminga became more and more reluctant to accept with the Warriors. It doesn't mean he won't accept it with Atlanta. He has no choice in some ways but to accept it with Atlanta. And if he can, he'll get more opportunities to be able to maybe flex his game out and do more with that Hawks team. But again, so far, so good on the Jonathan Kuminga front. All right, 808 KMBR. Kyle, let's go ahead and take a timeout. I think we're well overdue here for our first timeout on Dubs OT as we're with you here on this Tuesday night. 808 KMBR, 415-808-5627. We'll do more in the YouTube chat coming up here on the other side. We've kind of naturally gotten into Kuminga, which was going to be a topic of the show, kind of a secondary one. Warriors lose this thing 113-109. We'll get to the latest on Kristaps Porzingis as well, and we'll get to some sounds at Dubs OT and head toward tomorrow and the Warriors and the Memphis Grizzlies, which are going to come up. And, of course, we'll be with you right around 7 o'clock. That's a little bit of an earlier start than even tonight. It was a game that I think was going to be on ESPN at one point, so it's a 4:30 start and not a 5 o'clock start, even though it's in the Central Time Zone. So 4:30, so we'll be with you right around 7 tomorrow with Dubs OT. That they flexed out of it. There's another game, I think, in the ESPN slot tomorrow night that's not the Warriors and the Grizzlies, but they kept the time the same since they had originally scheduled it for 4:30 Pacific and 6:30 in Memphis. So we'll get to that coming up on the other side. It's John Dickinson right here, Dubs OT on the Sports Leader.
Live from downtown.
Curry, way downtown. Bang! Bang!
This is Dubs OT with John Dickinson on the Sports Leader. Streaming live at KNBR.com and on the KNBR app.
Jonte Murray hasn't played in the NBA for a year. His first game back. Sadiq Bey, shot clock at 9. Zion getting a running start. The floater up and out. Bey with the rebound and puts it up and in. It all flipped on that coach's challenge overturn.
Yeah, that was a key moment. Warriors had briefly grabbed the lead after being down by 14. They were up 86-85. Zion Williamson called for a charge. And then from that point on, the Pelicans end up going on a run to ultimately go up by 9 from the Warriors being up by 1 at 86-85. Pelicans win this one 113-109, the final over the Warriors. As we're back here, it's Dubs OT with JD here on the Sports Leader as the Warriors fall to 30-28 here on the season. 24 games to go. The Dubs back in action tomorrow, second of the back-to-back in Memphis. They're going to be with Al Horford, without DeAnthony Melton. Melton goes for 28 in the Warriors' loss tonight. All right, 808 KNBR, if you want to jump in and join the conversation on the phone lines. We'll get to a couple of texts here in the Golden State Lumber and Showroom text line as well here at 415-808-5627. But Kyle, let's let her rip here. Dubs OT and more Kyle's clicks. Ian J in the YouTube chat. I feel like the organization was a little delusional about the construction and talent of the roster after the 2022 championship. Well, no doubt. I mean, let's not forget that the Draymond Green punch changed everything, because the Warriors were coming off of the title and they're in training camp and the vibes are high in that year following. And Jordan Poole's about to get the massive extension that he got. And the Draymond punch really, it changed Jordan Poole's career. He has not been the same player since then, really not with the Warriors before ultimately being traded for Chris Paul. And I think the Warriors also, he wasn't with the Wizards and not now that he finds himself on his third team in the Pelicans. Jordan Poole was really important to the Warriors in the title run. I mean, people forget, and it is kind of a shame and sad, frankly, to look at Jordan Poole and the player that he currently is, given how good he was 4 years ago. He was awesome for the Warriors. Started next to Steph when Klay Thompson was out the first 3 months of that season, 2.5. I mean, the Warriors were 28-9. I mean, they were 31-13 at one point. Like, the Warriors were killing it without Klay because Jordan Poole was in the starting lineup next to Steph, and then Steph goes down toward the end of that year in the regular season, and Jordan Poole steps in and plays with Klay and runs the point, and they win a few games down the stretch that allow for them to ultimately get the third seed, and they're able to go on and win the title. I mean, how big was he in the Denver series? How big was he in the Boston series? In a number of those games. He had a big game in the one that the Warriors won in Memphis at the beginning of that series against the Grizzlies in the second round. I mean, Jordan Poole was terrific. And I would, so, losing him in the manner that they did as a player is really unfortunate. And beyond that, I think it became about the 2 timeline plan. And that was a complete and utter freaking disaster. I think they thought that they were solid enough in terms of the veteran players that they had to where they could allow for Jordan Poole to sort of lead the young group, and that they would be able to work Kaminga and Moody and those guys in Wiseman before they ultimately decided that they were going to move on from Wiseman, although they already had it, at that point to get GP2 back and in the fold. So I think, you look at that to me, it was that above everything else. And the one thing I'll say to kind of relate it back to now is I think, part of the reason Jordan Poole was able to be as good as he was in that 22 year, the championship year, was because he really did get an opportunity at the end of the prior year as we were all coming out of COVID. He got a chance. He went to the G League. He worked on his game. He came back, and he finished the year strong with the Warriors in games that mattered. But the Warriors were basically in a similar position that they're in now in 2026 as they were in 2021, where they can't win a title. We all know they can't win a title, but Jordan Poole really became a key player for them in that year that ended up basically with a play-in tournament loss. And his game grew to a point where he came back the next year and he was ready to start next to Steph, and he was ready to start next to Clay, and he was ready to be a part of a contender. And I think the question is, can Moody and or Podziemski, and one of the things I'm keeping an eye on with those two specifically, can those two, either of them, get to a point where they use the final month and a half to 2 months of this season to be able to propel their game a level better than we've seen them be able to do it. I'm skeptical as to whether either can do it, but I would have been skeptical as to whether Jordan Poole would have been able to do it 5 years ago. And he did, and it wound up paying some major dividends for the Warriors going back to the title year. But again, it was basically having the free reign at the end of that 21 year where everybody knew the Warriors can't win a title and they're probably going to be a play-in or at best a first round and out kind of a team. That's what the Warriors were in that 21 year, and Jordan Poole used it to develop. Can Podziemski and Moody use this time here where the Warriors' ceiling is probably play in or get to the first round and lose? Can they use that to grow as players and come back and be more firmly solidified NBA players because of the successes and failures that they're able to have? Thanks, Ian. Great comment there. Let's keep it rolling in the YouTube chat here on Dubs OT. Rip Cougar. Forget Jordan Poole. The mistake was picking Wiseman, JK over Franz, Lacob trying to take the credit for the Dubs success. Well, no argument there. None argument there. Yes, they would have been better off had they, at this point, I mean, I was not a fan of taking LaMelo Ball, but I mean, they would have been the move that I was calling for at the time, and you can go back and check the tapes, was the trade back for Wendell Carter and take Halliburton. Take Halliburton 4, take Halliburton 5, somewhere in there. You obviously weren't going to take him necessarily at 2. I don't think anybody was, but I could not believe as he kept falling and falling and falling, and ultimately falling to Sacramento at 12. I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. But yeah, that's the whiff there on Wiseman, because he truly was an NBA bust. And again, Kaminga is clearly not a bust at this stage in terms of his career. He wound up being a bust with the Warriors. His time with the Warriors was a bust, but he himself as a player, definitely not a bust. And obviously we were talking about the great start he got off to tonight with the Hawks. But yeah, Franz Wagner would have been a much more productive player that makes sense to play along with the Warriors. And Franz Wagner's been a better player than Jonathan Kaminga pretty much since the outset of his NBA career until now. And so they have to own those mistakes. There's no question. And they can't do anything about it now other than look to try to continue to improve this team with the guys that they have on it and try to make one more run for Steph. But you're right. The mistakes were Wiseman and the Kaminga pick, and to a lesser extent the Moody pick. And it was a scenario where, because they picked Wiseman, and I one of the things that I've talked about a lot that I've heard, part of the reason why they were reluctant to go LaMelo and or Halliburton was because they were high on Jordan Poole's development. And they knew Klay Thompson was going to be coming back. So they had two guards that basically were not being counted on at the point in which the Wiseman versus LaMelo Ball opportunity, the decision was made, or the Wiseman versus trade back and take Halliburton, they thought, well, we got Jordan Poole. Well, we got, we got Jordan Poole. We got Klay Thompson coming back. So let's go with the big. And then because they had the big in Wiseman, it led to the following year. You don't take Alperen Sengun because you have Wiseman. And then you wind up not taking somebody that pretty quickly and obviously proved himself to be a much better player than James Wiseman and an all-star type player in Sengun. But it's the old, as much as Moses Moody is solid, you'd rather have just had Trey Murphy the third and what he's become as a player. So, but because you ended up, maybe with Kaminga, you thought, oh, well, we've got Kaminga, so we don't need that big wing. We got the big wing. So in Kaminga, we don't need the Trey Murphy the third. We've got the center in Wiseman. We don't need Sengun. When the reality is you wind up leaving a couple of more guys that would have been better and more productive NBA players on the table. Florida Dubs fan, if Dre played the fourth, then we lose. Horford in place of Dre, and that game is a win. I don't know about that. I don't know about that tonight. I think if Horford had played throughout the course of the game, maybe they don't get off to such a trash start and wind up down 31-19 and they win the game. I'm not putting tonight on Draymond at all. And honestly, tonight might have been a night where Draymond and Horford might have played together down the stretch of the game. Draymond was playing well tonight defensively. Again, offensively, it was rough, and it was really rough in the first half, I thought. But I don't think tonight would have been one of those games where Draymond was sitting out in the place of Al Horford, but they really could have used Al Horford's shot-making ability tonight. To me, it was more about you wish you would have had Al Horford out there than Quentin Post, who was 0 for 4 from 3 and a minus 13 in 23 minutes. Those are the minutes to me that I would have wanted to have a quality Al Horford in addition to Draymond, and I think that's the way that this game may have wound up being a win for the Dubs instead of a loss. All right, what else here? San Jose Jazz fan, 8 with peak Steph and Klay. If Draymond got a double-double, even with 11 points, it would almost guarantee a win. Yeah, times have changed along that front. Times have changed. No doubt about it. Draymond is – and this is an issue up and down the Warriors roster. I mean, Danny in Vancouver pointed it out on the phones. Yeah, was Podziemski bad tonight? No. He played hard. He had 15 rebounds. He did score 16 points. But, Kyle, we talk about this all the time. Was Podziemski bad? No. But nights where he's 1 for 6 from 3 and 7 of 18, the Warriors just don't win. Like, they just don't. They just need more offense. They need more shooting. Even on nights where they have Steph a lot of the time, they need more offense. They need more efficiency from a lot of these guys. And there's just too many nights where a lot of these guys just don't put up those kinds of numbers with enough regularity. And it winds up turning games that maybe they could win into losses. And Draymond is definitely at the forefront of that. Like, how many nights do you look up and it's like, was Draymond bad? Yeah, more often than I think we've ever seen. He's had those nights where you go, yeah, Draymond was bad. But the other part of the equation is, how many nights where you go, damn, they just needed him to freaking score. Like, can he just score? And there's just nights where maybe he does the other things and he can't. There are nights where Moses Moody is pretty solid. But when Moses Moody doesn't hit threes, he did tonight. But when he doesn't, it really, really freaking hurts you. DeAnthony Melton has been in that category at different times this year where you look up and you're like, wow, DeAnthony Melton was really good tonight, but he was 1 for 5 from 3. If he could have just hit some shots, it would have been, I can't tell you, Kyle, it feels like that's something night in, night out in the first 2 months of the season before the Warriors kind of got rolling before Jimmy got hurt. It felt like, and it still does feel like every loss, it's like, if this guy or that guy could have just hit some shots, things could have been different. But again, that's the name of the game is putting the ball in the freaking basket, man. I mean, that's just the way it is. And so the Warriors are lacking, I think, up and down the roster on most nights, especially the nights where they lose. It's very easy to say they just don't have enough skill. And in particular, they just don't have enough scoring. And more specifically, they don't have enough shooting up and down the roster to get the job done. Good comment there. Appreciate it, San Jose. JMU22, Dubs fan, lifer here, but our team is done. Can't even beat New Orleans. Dre is washed. KP is broken. While Jimmy and Curry are getting old. Again, I don't think, I mean, this team for this season, as it relates to winning a championship, is done. Like, they're not winning a title. Does that mean they can't hold it together until Steph comes back and then get in and through the play-in and lose in the, get to the first round and lose? Again, I understand that's not the most appealing thing for Warrior fans that are used to this team, contending for championships. But again, that was the Jimmy injury is what wiped that out. And I think it's foolish to have the expectation, JMU, that this team, with the talent that they currently have, this is just reality. That they should go beat New Orleans. New Orleans was more talented. They're more talented tonight. I mean, I know it doesn't equate when you look at the records of these teams, but the team that New Orleans put out there tonight, hell, what if they had Trey Murphy tonight? They didn't even have Trey Murphy, and they were the more talented team. I mean, this team, JMU, isn't even done. This team was never. This team was never. I mean, what's the opposite of done? This team was never that. As it's currently constituted. But yeah, they also do have the ability for it to get ugly. I think if they can't find ways to get games like tomorrow, and so I think that's that's what you have to look at. And look, tomorrow's game I think is going to be tough because you're not going to have Melton, and yeah, you'll get Horford back, but you're going to need Brandon Podziemski to play better than he did tonight offensively. You need the hustle, you need all the intangibles, the charges, the rebounds, you need all that. But guess what? Tomorrow you need Podziemski to freaking score 20 points. And so we'll see if he's able to do it, which has been something that hasn't exactly been his calling card. Robert Brown, JD, do you think Curry comes back before April? I don't see why he would at this point. I do think he comes back before April. But, man, it's February 24th, so we're basically 6 weeks from April at this point, or I guess we're 5 weeks from April at this point. When you look at it, April, where are we? So we're the 3rd, 5. We're basically 5 weeks. April's 5 weeks from tomorrow, I guess, specifically. So, yeah, 5 weeks away. I think he's coming back. I think it's going to be the middle of March. If I had to put a timetable on it, I think it's ramping toward the road trip that the Warriors go on that will start on March the 15th. So they're going to play tomorrow in Memphis, and then they come home for a couple of games against the LA teams. Then they go to Houston. They go to OKC, they go to Utah to close that out, and then they come home for the Bulls and the Timberwolves. I feel like the Timberwolves game, because there are a couple of days off between the Bulls game and the Timberwolves game. I think they play the Bulls on a Tuesday, then they play the Timberwolves on a Friday. I feel like the Timberwolves game on the 13th is like the absolute earliest, but I think it's trending toward the long road trip, and I think the Warriors know that they're going to kind of need him by then. Otherwise, things would have the potential to get ugly. They start a long road trip. March the 15th, Kyle, have you seen this? They go 15-16. It starts on March 15th at Madison Square Garden. They go 15-16, New York, Washington, 1 day off. So back-to-back, 1 day off, Boston, March 18, 1 day off, and then they go back-to-back Detroit, Atlanta. So they have 5 and 7 and 6-9. They close out on the following Monday, the 23rd, in Dallas. So they go 3-4, and then 5-7, and then 6-9 from the 15th to the 23rd on the road. And then they come home at that point. So maybe it winds up getting kicked to after that road trip, but I think it's going to be right around the middle of March. I'm not going to say April just yet, Robert Brown. All right, let's keep it rolling here in the chat. Dubs OT with JD. Warriors lose 113-109. Juju Bug, Gee's close, but mental lapses are holding him back from being a great all-around player. Crucial mistakes at crucial moments in the game tonight. Yeah, Gee's learning. He's another one I think I should put in that category, and I probably shouldn't leave him out as it relates to young players that are going to get the opportunity to really expand their game here down the stretch of the season. And what level can they get their game to? Because we know Podziemski can fit, we know Moody can fit, we know Guy Santos can fit, but can these guys become guys that can be maybe counted on a little bit more as steady every night type players? And so I think Guy Santos needs the ability to get out there and fail a little bit in some of the big moments to help himself improve as well. And I shouldn't exclude him. I think I will exclude Quentin Post, because on a night where the Warriors are whole, he's probably not going to play at this point, because Horford and Porzingis and Draymond Green will be playing. But I think Guy, and he did, as Gene points out, have some bad turnovers tonight, without a doubt. But again, I think that gets mitigated some from being able to play, more minutes and go through it and experience the game and learn from those kinds of mistakes. And again, that is the reality of where things are in this non-Steph world. A lot of these guys have the opportunity to go out there and try to expand their game and grow it. Again, I use the example of what Jordan Poole did going back to 2021, when it wasn't no stakes, but the ability to win a title was not even something that was on the table, because Klay Thompson wasn't going to be coming back until the middle of the following season, when they did ultimately win the title. Buddha Cat, it's kind of funny how we're all flying high after the Denver game, and now we're all saying this is the worst roster in the league. Oh, how a couple of days changes things. Yeah, made that point a little bit earlier, Buddha. It does. And again, I asked Kyle, and I asked the chat, and I asked everybody here at 808 KNBR, am I a little too hard on them when I say that I think, because I truly believe they have the least talented roster when they don't have Steph and they don't have Jimmy. I truly believe they are the 30th most talented roster when they don't have those guys. But then they win a game like they did against Denver on hustle and 3-point shooting. And
the power of friendship.
The power of good vibes. And I have to kind of look in the mirror and say, well, am I maybe being too hard on these guys? And then you look at a game like tonight, and I go, no, I don't think I am. I don't think I am being too hard. And again, it's just the way this roster is built. They are a roster full of complementary players to surround Steph and to surround Jimmy. I mean, that's reality. That's what it is. And so if you take one of them away, they are players that for the most part have shown themselves incapable of truly leveling up. It doesn't mean they don't compete. And that was the one thing Danny in Vancouver mentioned earlier. Danny had brought to the table. He said, JD, I disagree with you. I never actually answered this part of what Danny said. He said, JD, I disagree with you. I think they played hard tonight. I think they played hard tonight after they got down. I don't think they were at the level that they needed to be at the beginning of the game. I think when it was 31-19, then for the remainder of the game, they played hard, and they were grinding through and doing what needed to be done. Diggum says it was Denver's trap game. That's pretty funny. Denver. It was Denver's trap game on Sunday against the Warriors. Robert, I wish I could have tonight, my man. I wish I could have. I actually have the mix channel, And so I did, but I couldn't quite get it synced up right because I was trying to go back and forth between the Knicks stream and I was trying to watch a little bit of Kaminga, but I had the mix channel going, and I like to sync the audio sometimes with the mix channel, which will get me the home telecast. And I agree with you, Robert. I think Joel Myers and Antonio Daniels are great. I think they're among the best broadcasting team in the league, and they'll let their guys have it. Joel Myers will get frustrated, man. The Pelicans play-by-play guy, longtime national play-by-play guy too, worked with the Lakers for a time. But he will let the Pelicans have it when they're not playing well, man. It's pretty good. But yeah, I did in some stretches tonight mute the local and go with the mixed channel synced up audio to be able to get the Warrior game on the bigger screen and try to get the audio on the other. But I was rolling through the stream only games tonight too. I wanted to watch the Knicks and the Cavs, and so I had to. It was a little harder to navigate for your boy tonight because I had one of them running through the stream and the other one running through the actual the hardwire. But I did find that. By the way, Kyle, I did find. Remember we were talking a couple weeks ago about the Peacock issue when the Warriors were on Peacock. I was able to get the game on the YouTube TV feed, and the Knicks game and the Portland, Minnesota. And I found that channel where you don't even have to go through the Peacock interface. And it's just, man, it's smooth. Anyway, I digress.
We might have to create a KMBR how-to tutorial, you know?
Well, I think whoever in the chat,
yeah,
I think it might have even been the text line, but somebody in the chat, forgive me, said, JD, you can watch it on this channel on the YouTube TV. So if you got the YouTube TV, you don't even have to mess with Peacock. You can just watch it through your YouTube TV interface. And so I was like, oh, I'm glad I know that, so now I just do that for all these games that are on Peacock. But that wasn't the Warriors tonight, obviously. All right, let's get to Jake in Walnut Creek next up here on Dubs OT as the Warriors lose this one to the Pelicans, 113-109. What's going on, Jake?
Hey, JD, thanks for taking my call, brother. Couple quick things wanted to get your opinion on. One, with roster construction, when you look at having Horford and Melton going into the season on both minute restrictions and the inability to play back-to-backs, and then at the deadline you add a guy who not only would he have the same restrictions if he were healthy, but is basically never on the court. I mean, doesn't that just seem like generally like a flawed philosophy in the way you're constructing a roster, you know, especially with an older team that you know is going to deal with injuries?
Yeah, I don't think it has to be, but I do think what you have to do is be able to be solidified in other areas of your roster to where you're not as dependent on those players that do have the restrictions to be successful. And I think that's the flaw, is that the Warriors are far too dependent on Melton and Horford and you know, the hope of what Porzingis, he hasn't really done anything for him yet other than get his feet wet in the one game against Boston, and he's been out the last two games since, and he's going to be out tomorrow. So it's too early to tell, but the hope of what Porzingis could bring is probably it's probably too much, to be honest. It's probably, so that to me is the flaw, is you can have those guys. And I even said at the time, like, having Horford and Porzingis in theory, you know, anytime you get a back-to-back, you get, you know, one of them for one game and one of them for the other game. And that's actually a nice way to manage it, to where, you know, you don't lose a step from a key player like they have been on these back-to-backs where they don't have Horford, especially on a night like tonight. They really could have used Horford tonight. Like, they might have won the game if Horford had played tonight, but they're so dependent on him. They decided tonight was the one that they wanted to give him off, I think, because they wanted to split him and Melton. But therein lies the problem, Jake, because Melton and Horford have basically been their best two players with Jimmy and Steph out. And I think they've miscalculated the rest of the roster with the young players, and they aren't getting enough and haven't gotten enough from the young players to where they've become so dependent. So to me, that's the bigger of the issue than those guys, having the ability to be productive in their set roles.
Right. I got one more for you, JD. This is a hypothetical. So I know we're all
Sure.
looking into the future of the post-step. Kerr walks after this season, which could happen. Kerr's kind of legacy, I think, aside from the championships, will be like the stability he's brought to the franchise, right? Along with Steph. Not a lot of, yes, chaos in some of the press and all that, but not a lot of turnover with the coaching staff, et cetera. Like, can you imagine a post-Kerr world where Lacob becomes a more trigger-happy owner, falls into some of the patterns that we see around the league? Like, does that seem like a real possibility to you that the franchise becomes a little bit more like the others in the post-Kerr, post-Steph world?
I think it's definitely a possibility. The one thing I will say and is, for all of Joe Lacob's flaws, the one thing that he hasn't done has been hasty, I feel like. And there have been things that he's been able to be talked out of. There have been things that, and I'll say it in this manner. A lot of owners would have fired a lot of owners that felt the way Joe Lacob felt about Jonathan Kaminga, for example, would have fired their coach. A lot of them would have. And he, for whatever reason, and I think this is kind of an example of what you're talking about. If it wasn't Steve Kerr, if it was, James Borrego or Mike Brown, and they weren't, they didn't think Jonathan Kaminga should be playing, and not a future Hall of Fame coach that's won 4 rings and a bunch more as a player. Would that have been the way things had played out? And would that have ultimately been for the worse with the Warriors? So time will tell. I think it's a great hypothetical, but I do think Lacob has, for the most part, had enough smart people around him during the time that he's owned the team to where and I think he's been thoughtful and analytical enough to not maybe always go with what he thinks is best, because he has trusted others who may know more. And again, it doesn't always come off that way, but if you look at, maybe he wanted to do the Kevin Love trade for Klay, with Klay Thompson included in the deal, and he was able to be talked out of it. Maybe he would have gotten rid of this coach or that coach. So I think it, like I said, time will tell, but I think he does deserve a little bit of the benefit of the doubt for being able to kind of hold his mud and not make the rash decisions. But to your point, maybe it's easier to do that because you have a top 5 all-time player in Steph, and you have one of the great coaches of all time in Steve that's so accomplished and so tied specifically to Steph and to this era.
Well, thanks a lot, JD. I look forward to the show every night, man. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks, Jake. Appreciate you, man. 808 KMBR, the number, 415-808-5627. Let's take another time out here. We'll come back. We'll go a little shorter on the other end, but we will get to Sounds at Dubs OT. We'll get our final installment here at Kyle's Clicks. We'll give you that Kristaps Porzingis update as promised, and also recount what Jonathan Kuminga did tonight in his debut with the Atlanta Hawks. It was a good night for Jonathan Kuminga. All right, 808 KMBR. We'll come back. We'll wrap things up here. Dubs OT with JD on the Sports Leader.
KNBR presents the sounds of Dubs OT.
I can see the headline now. Kerr says Warriors better without Curry.
No class, no ball.
I want to get my joy back. I'm happy here, off the court.
Now here's John Dickinson.
All right, welcome back. We are into the 9 o'clock hour, little Dubs OT here on the Sports Leader. We got it going a little bit after 7:30 tonight, so we are going to go a little bit into overtime here on Dubs OT at 9:04. You listen to KNBR 104.5 FM and 680 AM San Francisco, the Sports Leader, a Cumulus Media station, as Fozzie says. Maybe we'll have a shorter show tonight, quoting me. We'll see. JD 2 hours ago. We're about an hour and 30 in. We're almost an hour and 30 in. But tomorrow it will be an expanded version as we'll start a little bit closer to 7. But we will get to Sounds of Dubs OT. We're not going to blow this thing out to 9:30. But a couple of Steve Kerr cuts. We'll wrap some things up in the YouTube chat, and then we'll give you some fun with numbers here before we close it up. It is a back-to-back, and I am going to be on with Greg Silver tomorrow from 10 until 2. So it will be a double day for your guy here on the Sports Leader. Make sure you catch me and Greg 10 to 2 as I'll be sitting in for Papa. Of course, we wish Papa all the best as he's going to be undergoing the procedure here coming up in the next week. So big time prayers for Pop in what's going to be a big time stretch for him coming up, where he's going to step away for a short period of time. All right, let's hear a little bit from Steve Kerr in New Orleans on the Warriors' loss. What ultimately, in Steve's mind, did the Warriors in this game?
I don't know that down the stretch is what got us. It was just the full, 48 minutes. We had 21 turnovers. We did not execute very well offensively. Spacing was bad. We transition. We had probably 3 potential layups in the first half, and we didn't run. We didn't cut to the rim. We didn't get to the corners. So we just looked a little disjointed. I thought their pressure early, took us out of some stuff. But the game was right there for us. We just couldn't execute well enough. And we, with the injuries we have to play well to win. We have to play well. And I don't think we played well tonight.
That's a good way of saying it. With the team that they have and the injuries and the guys that are out, like there aren't going to be many nights where you don't play well and you still have the ability to win. And again, that's independent of, who you're playing, right? You could be playing one of the best teams in the league. If you play well, you got a shot. You're playing one of the worst teams in the league. If you don't play well, you can get got. And so I think that's the Warriors did not, sometimes it boils down to you play a winning game, you play a losing game. And the Warriors definitely tonight did not play a winning game in terms of the execution and the shot making and obviously the sloppiness and the turnovers as well. So yeah, you look at that and wow, we got a little brouhaha in Portland between Minnesota and the Trailblazers tonight. What was that? Ayo Dosunmu looks like he went up and got Siosko of Portland going up for a layup, kind of undercut him in the air, and Siosko got up and wanted to go. And now they're reviewing things in Portland as they're in a close game there between the Timberwolves and the Blazers. All right, one more from Steve Kerr. He get his take on Draymond tonight. And, Draymond obviously going to be a topic of discussion. We've seen the decline in Draymond. I don't think tonight was maybe the most pronounced compared to what we've seen Draymond in terms of his struggles in some other games. But here's what Steve Kerr had to say about Draymond's performance.
The game opened up a little bit. I thought Draymond did a really good job of running the floor. One of the things we're talking to him about right now, especially without Steph, is to really dive out of pick and roll and clear that space at the top. Normally, he and Steph are playing their 2-man game up there, and it's really lethal. But without Steph, we've got to get him down the floor. So I thought he really sprinted the floor in transition, got to the corners. Second half, you could see the assists started to pile up because, we did some things off ball to create some openings. He made some really nice plays.
Yeah, I thought it was much better as the game went on for Draymond. I thought, it looked a lot like what we've seen from Draymond in terms of them really leaving him open and the shots are looking ugly. And then he tries to get into the lane a little bit and then his shot's getting blocked. And then does he want to shoot the little pull up? And then he doesn't necessarily want to shoot the pull up. And so, but in the second half, getting out in transition and trying to get some easier buckets, I do think wound up helping Draymond kind of salvage his night from an offensive standpoint. But all in all, not enough as the Warriors lose this game to the Pelicans, 113-109. All right, let's quickly get the update, as I mentioned, on Kristaps Porzingis. Steve Kerr did address it a little bit more specifically in the pregame press conference with reporters on hand in New Orleans. There had been a question, and it had been kind of murky. Like, was this a flu? Was this something related to the POTS issue that had kept Kristaps Porzingis out during the end of his time with Boston and at times with Atlanta? And Steve did say that it wasn't related to any of the other prior issues that Porzingis has had. It's more just that he caught a bug and he was going to need 4 or 5 days to kind of get right and be able to come back and play again. So they didn't send him on the trip. Obviously, he missed the game on Sunday afternoon against Denver. And so you look at that, and he projects to be back, according to Kerr, against the Lakers when the Warriors return home for that game on Saturday night. They'll go Saturday, Monday against the Lakers and the Clippers, respectively. And then the other note of the night tonight was the Jonathan Kuminga debut with the Hawks. And look, it is going to be something that is, people are going to be keeping an eye on. And I know he's not a member of the Warriors anymore, and we're not going to break down every single game that Jonathan Kuminga has, but he did make his debut for the Hawks, and he did play well tonight, and that is notable with 27 points, 7 boards, 4 assists. He was 9 of 12 shooting. He made 3 corner threes in the game. He got to the free throw line 7 times and knocked down 6, and everything was either transition or corner 3 or at the rim for a dunk or for a layup. It looked, as I mentioned earlier, an awful lot like a lot of the really good Jonathan Kuminga games. There was no mid-range other than 1 shot in garbage time to be seen. There was no above-the-break threes, and he had his hustle game going tonight, as you would expect, with the change of scenery, as desperately as he wanted to get away from the Golden State Warriors. All right, let's get to a couple of more chats here. Let's run through our best of the best, and then we'll call it a night on that note here on this Tuesday. Bennett Roth, how do you trade for a guy with pots when you already have a player named Pods on the team? You can't really make this stuff up. I hadn't really thought of it like that, Bennett. But again, that's why it is the best YouTube chat in sports, because the people are always thinking, always keeping us on our toes here on Dubs OT. Thanks, Bennett. Mickey D, none of them can hit the broadside of a barn half the time. Yeah, just not enough shooting. It's frustrating. And how long has this been a problem for the Warriors, right? I mean, this goes back to this is the 4th straight year, I think, where you can say since the championship in 22, 23, 24, 25, or in 26, 4th straight year where you look, you're like, God, I just don't have enough shooting. Don't have enough guys who can create enough off the dribble for themselves or others. That's one thing. But if they just had some guys who could knock down some shots a little bit more consistently, I think the whole thing would look a lot better. And I think a lot of the frustration in terms of the evaluation of a lot of these young players could have been a lot different as well. All right, let's get a few more here. Fozzie, I'll say it. Joe Lacob is slowly turning into Jerry Jones. Well said. I mean, that is kind of what the caller was getting at, our buddy Jake in Walnut Creek. There are some Jerry Jones tendencies. There are. But, again, Jerry Jones, if he believed in Jonathan Kuminga, would have fired Steve Kerr. Like that, and Joe Lacob did not fire Steve Kerr. Vivek would have fired Steve Kerr if he believed as much as in Jonathan Kuminga as Joe Lacob reportedly did. Although I thought it was interesting that Joe tried to distance himself a little bit from that in the interview that he did with Tim Kawakami of the SF Standard. He tried to say, hey, I know everybody thought I protected him and this and that. And look, I've said it, but ultimately they did trade him. Ultimately they did trade Wiseman. Now, again, the issue is it should have been done sooner, and or they should have not picked a couple of those guys that they did pick because there were some other options that maybe would have been more beneficial to add to the Warriors roster. Let's keep it rolling here. Draymond needs to fight a European to get his mojo back. Who they playing tomorrow? Well, he can't go at it. No more Jaren Jackson Jr. Edie's not playing. Aldama, there you go. Santi Aldama. I was going to say Edie's not a European, but Edie and him have mixed it up a little bit. But Edie's not playing right now. Okay, yeah, Santi Aldama. Good. Max Lopez. JK only played 24 minutes. Bet his agent's pissed. I don't know about that. He played pretty well in those 24 minutes. Imagine if he had played 36 minutes. He would have had 40. No, Kaminga played really well tonight. And again, picture that quintessential running the floor in transition, couple of dunks, couple of buckets off of cuts, couple of drives against a defense that wasn't, against a defense that was scrambling because of the ball movement. So he's able to drive kind of in a lane without a lot of threat to have his shot blocked. And again, against a team that really fouled him a lot too. So he got to the free throw line and he hit, we should note, hit 3 of the 4 corner threes that he took in the game, which leveled his game up into the 27 range as opposed to maybe the 16 to 18 range. Robert Brown, JD, what's your take on Bill Simmons saying LeBron to the Warriors in the summer? I can see it. I've said it. Kyle, you can attest to this. I think it's on the table. I think LeBron to the Warriors is on the table in the summer. I think there is a part of LeBron James that would love to finish his career with Steph. I also think, though, he might be toying with the notion and ultimately he wants to go back to Cleveland and try to finish where he started and get a little bit more of a farewell tour that isn't necessarily going to be in the shadow of Steph. So maybe if he wants to play 2 more years, it's the Warriors for a year and then Cleveland. If he's only going to play 1 more year, I feel like the Warriors chatter is legitimate and he'd be able to, take a veteran minimum or do whatever he wanted to. I think it would personally be great to see. And I think, we'll see if you get LeBron and wait for Jimmy and, maybe you keep Horford and Melton. I mean, that team's got action with Steph. I mean, that team's got action. So Robert, I don't think it's crazy. But again, I think you have to ask yourself, if it is going to be the farewell tour for LeBron James, does LeBron James truly want to do that in the Bay, in the shadow of Steph Curry, given the agendas and the narratives and all of that? Or does he want to go wrap it up in Cleveland and try to maybe win a title in his final year with the Cavs, who are now all in with Donovan Mitchell and Harden and the guys that they have remaining, and try to maybe get one in his final year, get another one back in his home area there. So I think ultimately that's what will determine where he goes. All right, let's get to our comment of the night.
Now, time for the Dubs OT comment of the night.
Fozzie, I should have watched the State of the Union instead of what? Instead of the Warriors? I don't know about that. Apparently it was still going for apparently it went 2 hours. So sources say. But no, that wasn't on in the home studio. There were too many games on tonight with the Knicks game on and the Magic and the Laker game ended up on, and the Warriors and Kaminga was playing. There were too many games tonight for me to be scrambling through to get caught up in any of that. All right, that's going to do it for us. Do we want to do fun with numbers? Let's see how many. Oh, go ahead, play the thing.
This is Dubs OT with JD. Time now for fun.
I'm a fun guy.
With numbers.
No, I'm just having fun.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live on KNBR.com and the KNBR app.
All right. Warriors, last 2 games on the road, they have dropped now 11-17 overall. Warriors still win the regular season series against the Pelicans, although losing a game to the Pelicans this season, not exactly ideal. As the Warriors win 2 out of 3 against the Pelicans. The Pelicans ended a 6-game overall losing streak to the Warriors, a 4-game home losing streak to the Warriors. So the Warriors have been playing well in New Orleans. And the Warriors are 6-5 now in the first game of a back-to-back. Warriors, second straight clutch game. They haven't been playing as many clutch games without Jimmy and without Steph, but they are now 11-14 overall in 25 clutch games, including 6 and 9 on the road in 15 clutch games. So more clutch games on the road than at home. 21 turnovers for the Dubs. They're 4-7 when they have 20 or more turnovers in a game, and they're 9-20 now when they have more turnovers than their opponent. That's been a stat that has still been able to be an indicator. And yes, as Rip Cougar says, and you knew, I thought the exact same thing. Pelicans, we also lost to bleeping Sacramento. Yes, they did. 1-1 on a night where nobody played in Sacramento in early November, and they'll get a couple opportunities against them the final week of the season. Melton at 28, Moody at 24, 10th 20-point game of the year for Moody. He's in double figures in 17 of the last 18, including the last 6, and he's made 4 3-pointers in at least 3 or more in 5 of the last 6 games for Golden State. Podziemski, second straight double-double. He's been rebounding the hell out of the ball. 15 more boards tonight for Pods, but he didn't shoot it well. 1 of 6 from 3-point range. All right, that'll do it. Kyle, I saw Jordan. We have Jordan. Big thanks to Jordan Pertari. Anybody else we need to thank tonight?
Yeah, I wish I could say thank you to Kyle Chung, but he wasn't a factor in tonight's game. Ended up dead even. Plus minus zero.
Rare night for Kyle Chung that he doesn't make a positive impact. Could have used it tonight, to be honest, but there will be another opportunity for Kyle. Yeah, thanks to Millboy 86. Millboy 86. Peace, y'all. Thanks to Dom. Thanks to Joe Schmo. Thanks to Andis. We love you. Fozzie was on fire tonight, says our buddy San Jose Jazz fan 8. And Kyle's going to demand that I don't have the ability to do the clicks anymore because I just kind of go rogue. Appreciate it. Peace out to everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow, 10 until 2. I'm on with Greg Silver, and then back for Dubs OT after the Warriors and Grizzlies. We'll talk to you then right here on the Sports Leader. John Dickinson. No, God!